Where shall I start? All right, let's start here. This here is a boxing and MMA channel. And I started this channel because I wanted a platform where I could express my views and opinions when it comes to current affairs and fights in combat sports. I deliberately don't talk about social and political issues because although I'd consider myself to be a reasonably intelligent man, I know I don't do enough work when it comes to research or just taking on information or trying to see both sides of an argument or an idea. I don't do enough of that for me to feel confident enough to share my opinions, even though I have them. I don't feel confident enough to share my opinions online because I know I just haven't educated myself enough, B. The problem is there are certain instances where social and political issues have a direct impact on boxing and MMA, and that makes it difficult to talk about boxing and MMA without addressing the social and political issues that I'm referring to. A prime example of this is the coronavirus. Now, a couple of months ago, as an ex-MMA fighter, I made a video about Brendan Schaub and my frustrations towards the opinions and the severity of the opinions that he was sharing on his podcasts. And the reason why I was frustrated isn't so much because of the opinions he had, although I did have a problem with the opinions. It was more to do with the fact that I know he didn't do the stuff that I mentioned before. He didn't spend enough time doing the required level of due diligence. He didn't spend enough time learning. He didn't spend enough time understanding and taking on information and trying to see both sides of an argument before he shared his opinion. I felt that his motivations behind the opinions that he was sharing were disingenuous. I felt like he was dressing up the reason behind him having the opinions he had as his concern for the economy at large and his concern for how people will mentally deal with being locked up, losing jobs, work, etc., etc. I felt like his real issue was the fact that he was no longer able to go on the road and do comedy, and he was kind of dressing up the frustrations behind him not being able to go out and earn money and covering it up with, I'm worried about other people, I'm worried about people that are losing their jobs, I'm worried about mental health, etc., etc., etc. That's all well and good, right? People are allowed to have opinions and they're allowed to have their own motivations behind why they have those opinions. Now look, him and Brian Callen went out, hit the road, they started doing comedy over the last few weeks, and it's no surprise they both caught the virus. I know Brendan Schaub did. I'm not sure about Brian Callen, whether he has or he's pretending he has. Now, I believe Brendan Schaub tested positive for coronavirus last week, Monday. It's Monday, the 6th of July. So last Monday would have been 29th of June. I believe he tested positive on that Monday. And the reason I'm making this video is because last week, Wednesday or Thursday, something like that, a couple of days after testing positive, Brendan Schaub posted a picture of himself outdoors, holding his bike on his back, posing, saying that he'd done a number of miles on his bike. Now, that really, really, really pissed me off. And I'll explain to you why it pissed me off. Me sat here now today, I haven't been to my office since early March. I've worked from home ever since this whole thing started. When I leave my house in good faith. What I mean by that is, before I leave my house, I know deep down within myself that I don't feel any different to how I felt yesterday. I'm not physically feeling any of the symptoms that people feel when they have coronavirus. When I leave the house, I expect other people to leave the house in good faith in the same fashion that I do. I expect other people to be leaving the house thinking to themselves, look, I don't feel sick. I don't know for 100% if I have got the virus or not, but I can say in my heart of heart, 100%, I don't think I have. For Brendan Schaub to leave his house on the Wednesday or Thursday, knowing that he's got the virus, that just showed a complete disregard to the community around him. And it just showed a side of the geezer that I didn't know it existed to that extent. Like, I knew that side existed, but I just didn't know it went that far. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even have to do any research or educate myself about this, because I know for a fact, I don't care which town, city, state, or province or country you're from, there isn't a single place on God's green earth that mandates that once you test positive for coronavirus, 2 or 3 days later, what you need to do is put your fucking cycling shoes on, put your cycling shorts on, put your merch on, stick your helmet on, and hit the road. There's not a single place that says that's what you need to do. This is a geezer that is using the fact that he's got the virus to downplay the effects of the virus, even though there are thousands of people out there dying on a weekly basis. Now, I know he has mentioned himself on a couple of occasions that there's a spectrum of effects that it has on human beings. Some people don't show any symptoms whatsoever, and the other extreme is people die. Now, for him to know that people are dying and then people aren't experiencing any symptom whatsoever, for him to try and show that he's one of the people that are closer to the side of the spectrum where they're not feeling any symptoms. And I'm glad, by the way, I'm glad that he looks like he's going to be recovering pretty shortly or whatever. But in an effort to show that, he decided to disobey the one golden rule when it comes to this virus. Like, there's a lot of opinions and stuff like that, but there's one golden rule. If you have tested positive, if you know you have the virus, sit your fucking ass at home for a couple of weeks until it goes away, and then leave the house. Don't come into contact with other human beings. And he decided to disobey that rule in an attempt to back up this opinion that he's been sharing, that he hasn't spent the time to actually understand, to get to a position to have that opinion. He's married to this whole effort to disregard and undermine the effects of this virus. He feels that strongly about all of this that he's decided to break the one golden rule in an attempt to help support this argument he's had throughout this entire process of the coronavirus pandemic. But if you feel that strongly about your opinion and you're so married to that opinion and you're willing to break the one golden rule, which is don't leave your fucking house if you've tested positive a couple of days ago for the virus, if you're so principled about that matter, and if you feel so strongly about that matter, then why then delete the picture that you posted? Like, when I used to actually pay attention to Brendan Schaub's opinions about MMA before I checked out, when his show was called The Big Brown Breakdown, I remember on a couple of occasions when John Jones would tweet something and then delete it, something that might be controversial, something that might be, insulting of another fighter or the UFC themselves. One thing that Brendan Schaub always used to say is, what is the point in posting and deleting? Like, someone is bound to screenshot. Once you've sent it, it's out there. There's no point deleting it. So I just want to understand what his motivations for deleting his post are. Because clearly he feels so strongly about the coronavirus and how people are blowing it out of proportion. Clearly he feels that everyone else is basically a pussy compared to him. And he knows better because he's a numbers guy. I tell you what, if you're going to delete that post, just have a look at the Fighter and Kids Instagram posts. Have a look at those numbers, because every time I've seen a post on the Fire and Kids Instagram page, majority of the posts are, this show sucks, all you guys do is talk about coronavirus, oh, you're so wrong about this, you're so wrong about that. If you're a numbers guy, read the numbers, have a look at the numbers. I know you're not so good with words, but have a look at the numbers. Have a look at the numbers, I'm telling you, because it's embarrassing. Like, and I'm not a hater. I want to make this clear, because I don't hate like Brendan Schaub, and like for me, if you're a hater, you have like that hate. The term hater is basically someone that's jealous. Let's get it right. There's nothing here for me to be jealous of. Nothing. I have no envy towards Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub. Like, nothing that they stand for, nothing that they do makes me feel like I'd love to be in that position. I don't. I'm not a hater. I'm just here, and like how Brendan Schaub has these strong opinions that he does about the virus. I've got my own opinions that I'm sharing now the same way he does. It's just as simple as that. It's just as simple as that. Like, I don't have an agenda. Like, I was a fan of The Fighter and the Kid. Like, I would listen to that podcast on a weekly, every single episode, every week. And there's a reason I've stopped. And I know I'm not the only one. There's a number of people that have just stopped. Because as time has progressed, the personalities of both of them, to an extent, has just taken a dive. And it's almost like as the podcast grew with success, so did their egos. And I don't know that for a fact. I don't know them personally. It's just the impression that they're giving me on a weekly basis of me listening and or watching the podcast. But all of that stuff aside, I just want to end what I'm saying, because I don't want to really address this anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I just feel like this whole crusade that they've been on when it comes to the coronavirus, and how they've dressed it up, and them trying to show that their motives behind what they're saying are coming from a genuine place. I'm not buying it. And the fact that Brendan Schaub was out on his bike a couple of days after testing positive, for me, just reaffirms it. It proves it. But yeah, that's the last I'm going to be talking about Brendan Schaub and his fucking opinions about the coronavirus. Let me know what you guys think. Put your comments below. Don't be scared to hit the like button. Share this with a friend if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Before I go, I just want to say normal service will resume. If you watch my videos because you like me talking about boxing and MMA, that's going to happen this week. I'm going to be talking about UFC 251. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of killer fights. It's a stacked card. I can't wait for it. And I'm going to be talking about each of the fights on the main card. So look, this is the last time I'm going to be talking about this sort of stuff. If you follow my channel for boxing and MMA, I promise. But anyway, I'll catch you guys next time.